Good afternoon, and the Lord be with you. My name is Joel Olson from the People's United Methodist Church in Oregon, Wisconsin, and these are my devotional thoughts for Thursday, January 14th, 2021. We've been hearing a lot about being connected this past year. The pandemic has forced us into isolation, and many relationships and associations have been compromised. Teachers with students, employees with fellow workers, families with their elderly ones, even pastors with their congregations have experienced disconnectedness. Thanks be to God that technology has stepped up to the plate. We now have YouTube for church, Zoom for meetings, and our daughter in law uses Microsoft Teams for her teaching at Madison College. In this time of need, we have found creative ways to stay connected. I think of another way too. We are connected to essential relationships, an important connection. When we think of the shape of the cross in our Christian faith, we see two dimensions. The horizontal arms of the cross embrace us with each other and with our neighbors and our world community. The vertical upright of the cross lifts our thoughts and our hearts to our God. Every cross we see on churches and on jewelry, and every cross we trace upon our heads and on our hearts reminds us of our connectedness with our God and with our neighbors. But there is yet another dimension of connectedness that, should we forget it or neglect it, our failure will be at some peril. This third dimension of connectedness is history. We are creatures of history, and we are creatures with a history. Someone wisely said that those who fail to know their history will be condemned to repeat it. That statement has the gut punch of guilt to it, suggesting that our present troubles are largely our own fault. There may be some truth in this thought, but I'm not coming before you to lay blame on anyone. Rather, I prefer the more beneficial aspect of history that says something like this: if we wish to look into the future, we must know that we are standing on the shoulders of giants. This is to say that we are the inheritors of rich traditions, and because of that, we are better grounded. And when we are confident in our beliefs, we can face the future creatively with renewed hope. Let me share with you a personal example. I was raised in a church tradition that professed the Apostles' Creed every Sunday in church, and my parents saw to it that I was in church every Sunday. So the Apostles' Creed was grounded in my soul. Then confirmation classes in that church consisted of years of memorizing the catechism and its meanings, along with Bible studies and the teachings of the church. I did my memory work, and right after I was tested on what I had memorized, I promptly forgot it. My experience was probably shared by most teenagers of the time. Then, when I went to college, and to church college no less, I felt I was losing my faith, though in retrospect, I was probably just expanding my horizons. But in those college years, those challenging years of dark nights of the soul, something was gnawing at my insides. At the strangest times, and at some inconvenient times as well, a connectedness with my personal history was bubbling up in words that went like this: I believe by my own effort that I cannot come to Jesus Christ, my Lord, or believe in him, but the Holy Spirit is calling me, enlightening me, and keeping me in true faith. It took a lot of repetition and a lot of reflection before I realized those words came from the explanation of the small catechism I had memorized in confirmation classes and thought that I had forgotten. Bottom line for me was that the Apostles' Creed that I had learned by every Sunday repetition and the explanation I had memorized served me well during a time of personal crisis. Nowadays, when I cannot be in worship services to recite the great historic creeds of the church with a congregation of believers, I recite it at home and rehearse the catechism as I was taught, and find that my Christian faith is intact after all. I'm connected with my Christian roots and my fellow Christians and with my God, and it is well with my soul. There are other historical connections in our experience and other words that we have memorized as children, Bible verses, hymns, poems, short speeches, part of the United States Constitution, all that would serve us well should we recall them and reclaim their truths, those shoulders of giants on which we stand. In these days when we may have some extra time on our hands, why not work up a few verses of a psalm or a favorite hymn or poems like Flanders Fields or even the Gettysburg Address? By connecting with the treasures of the past, we may find ourselves stronger in faith for facing the challenges ahead. Today, we are nearly halfway through the month of January. This month is named for the Roman god Janus. Janus was always portrayed with two faces, one looking backward, one looking forward. Even without Roman mythology, we know this about January. At the end of December, the news media reviewed the good and the bad of the year just past. And in January, we make resolutions for the future. In January, we find ourselves looking back and then resolve to look ahead with renewed commitments. That's a connectedness with our past that prepares us for what is coming next. And not just in January, of course, but any day, every day. Sundays still seem to be a good time to claim the heritage of our faith for spiritual courage to face new days. Even patriotism has the power to inspire our advocacy for greater justice for all. We have learned again the value of connectedness during this pandemic, and not just connectedness with other people. For many people, their values and their religious faith have come to the forefront during this time. And when we connect with our history and our heritage, accepting the good and the bad of it, we may find ourselves morally stronger and more courageous to address the needs of our culture and our society. When we stand on the shoulders of giants, we can see farther and clearer the landscape before us and where we are headed. During this time, I encourage us all to remain connected to all that has made us who we are. Perhaps it is just for such a time as this that we are called to be strong. God be with you.